Okay, welcome back to part 8 of the Qedit tutorial. Today we're going to talk about some more in-depth scripting, some opcodes that are going to be basically used in a lot of quests. So to get us started, I'm going to start talking about two opcodes that are very similar. They're called thread and thread stage. Basically what thread does is thread will continuously run a function throughout the entire quest. This opcode is not used very often because this will even run while the player is warping and loading into an area, etc. What's more commonly used is thread stage, which will get run on whatever floor handler you put it on. So this will only run for whatever floor you want it to run on. So with that being said, we're going to change a little bit in function 5 here for the temple floor handler. So we're going to start by thread staging function 6. We're going to kind of move things around a bit here. And we're also going to thread stage, I believe, function 8, but I'll fix it if need be. We'll do a ret. So this is going to become function 6.
You can remove the jump I since we're separating the functions now.
Yes, so this is going to change to 7.
You had them backwards.
Yep, this is going to change to 6. And then this, if the switch is pressed, is going to jump to function 7. This jump 6 just is repeating this function. So this is going to become function 7 now. The door is unlocked. Then we want this to be, we can actually just remove this jump 7 because we're actually going to thread stage this function here, function 8. And
that's 9, and then the jump is an 8.
Yep, this is function 9 because we want this to jump to function 9 when its conditions are met. And this is going to be jumping to itself if the switch isn't, or if the zone's not clear yet. And then this one is function 9. So those are basically, so function 6 is going to be threading this one. Function 8 is going to be threading this. So it's just a review. Function 5, the reason it's this function is because our floor handler for temple is looking at function 5. So what will happen is when the player arrives on temple, these two functions will be continuously run until their conditions are met, essentially. What we're also going to do is we're going to talk about two other opcodes that will sync a register for all players.
So as we see here, what we're going to have planned here is function 9 is going to need to be performed on multiple floors. So we're going to want this performed on Pioneer 2 when, say, someone decides to go back, restock, or just AFK for a little bit. So if we can see our function numbers here. To review from previous parts, our floor handler for Pioneer 2 is function 20. Function 20 was the one that carried the register 0 check. So we're going to include, for after the quest is run and you go back, to jump to function 30. And the placing on this one's a little important because we have a jump, not a call. So function 20 calls 21 and 30. 21 was the entire block of script that was for the starting cutscene that occurs. At the end of the cutscene, we're going to have a thread stage for function 8. And we're also going to write function 30 as another thread stage 8. This way, irregardless of whether you went to or came back from temple, you will always run into function 8 at some point, and then 8 will continuously run no matter what floor you're on. This way, when the game detects that the final monsters were cleared and runs function 9, it'll occur. Now, if we want to make this register 255 sync for all users, then we change this into a sync register. Sync register allows you to make the same value for all users. You don't have to have each individual user come into this function to obtain that value. So by turning this to sync register, this allows everyone to update to this value when this has occurred once. So now, since all users would be able to meet the requirement that R255 is 1, the quest is complete. This does not, though, indicate that function 8 will lead into 9, because the requirement is if zone clear. If for some reason they run function 8 and they do not detect that 255 is 1, it would have nowhere to go. So in this case, we can make it so if a jump by is 1, to just immediately jump to function 9. This is mostly a failsafe, but also covers for if you happen to be in a loading screen while the sync register is going off. Essentially, you just want to make sure that there is every possible pathway that function 9 can be reached so that they get their clear message. In older quests, like from Dreamcast and PC, you may see a similar function called a sync Leti. It operates the same way, but it's a version 1 opcode. Sync register is a lot more versatile. Sync register also allows you to sync one register into another. So say if zone clear did register, we can make it so when register 10 is 1, we can make register 255 equal the same value as register 10. Next, we're going to replace an object with something in the script. Say you don't like placing script collisions. Say you don't want people to know that there's something here when they look at this quest file as easy. If we want to make this exact same script collision on this location, but in script instead of on the map, we'll just keep track of its coordinates, keep track of its radius, keep track of its function number, and we're going to make this @chords call in the script. When this function needs to be ran, needs to be in the floor handler so that it knows something is going to be placed here. So if we keep track of the coordinates here, we have 14, 0, negative 522. These are going to be our first 3 Letis. These will be the coordinates of the @chords call. Next, we're going to do the radius, which was 20, and then the function, which was 25. And finally, we call all this with the function @chords call. Now, if I delete this script collision, the exact same object that was there is now placed into the script. It'll still call function 25, which is the window message telling you which directions everything is. It's just now in a script format instead of an object. There's other similar forms to this opcode that perform similarly. @chords talk would be another one. This one performs with your A button being replaced with the chat icon. This way you can come into contact with the collision, but trigger it when you push the A button. Another one is set object parameter. This functions the same as @chords talk, where you can interact with this at will. The difference is this places a target reticle at the location. The second register in this is just simply the register that the reticle gets targeted in. This can eventually get deleted or replaced with another one. The set object parameter has to have an extra register though, where it determines how high off the ground the target reticle is. If I make register 6512 units, it'll make it so that the target reticle is about a regular target height. However, for the ease of simplicity, we are going to just make this an @chords call, where we just run into it and the function is complete. So the next opcode we'll talk about is unhide object. This functions in a similar way to the map event where we unhide something. If you recall that we have a switch and a warp that gets unhidden. We're going to perform a similar feat, but using the portal that teleports you back to Pioneer 2. We're going to make this appear flag 3. And then in function 7, we're going to perform unhide object. This one uses 3 registers. The first register is the floor number. This is alpha, so it's going to be floor 1. The next one is the room number. The room number was 50 for the warp. And the appear flag is 3. This is the third register. So by doing unhide object with this setup, if you recall, function 7 occurs after the poison lily is defeated. The warp will not be present until after the lily is defeated. When it checks it and when it runs the registers in sequence and unhides it, it'll unhide as the door unlocks. Next, we'll do unhide enemy. If you remember this event collision in this hallway that spawns the bell res, we're going to function this similar to the script collision that we replaced earlier. Event number is 2, radius is 30. When function 7 unhides the warp, unlocks the door, we'll also make it unhide the Belra on wave 1 in the hallway. Room 141 for the second one. Wave number is the third register, and then the amount of delay for the fourth register, we're going to make this 30. And then unhide enemy. And then we'll delete this event collision. So now, as we replace the event collision, it's now in script form. This was wave 2 in the event call. This technically does not need to be here anymore. The problem with this method is that unless you have that wave tied to something else through the script, there can be no continuation from this wave being defeated. Unhide object and unhide enemies also only perform per client, so if it's in a function that is not occurring for multiple players, all players will not see it. Considering this is a thread stage that is always ran, players will run into this opcode. The problem is the unhide enemies does not allow a continuation of waves from it. But there is another opcode that does this, and that is set event. So if we remove unhide enemy and do set event, this will call the map event in the map event window. If we make this 2, it'll make it so it instantly spawns wave 2 when this runs in the script. This opcode does not have the issues of unhide object and enemy. This is performed for all players when it is ran, so it's a lot more versatile. This way, now that the event collision is gone, we do have a way for event 2 to be called which will end up calling event 3 and allowing you to continue the quest as normal.
Another thing too, this set event, doesn't it need to be in the floor handler? Or does it?
No,
It does all events named too, regardless of floor.
it does all events named 2 on the floor that it occurs on.
Okay.
So if we had an event 2 in another map, like in beta,
Yeah.
it'll only call event 2 on the floor that this is called from.
Okay.
Since we have function 6 and 7 called in alpha, it'll only run event 2 from alpha.
Okay. So it has okay.
If you wanted to spawn something else on a different map, then you would use unhide enemy, but set event only works on the map that it's loading from.
So, just to kind of show off unhide enemy, we're not going to place the enemy here. We'll see. We'll save it for later. But just to kind of set this up, we're going to do a unhide enemy in this Opcodes call that we did. So it's going to be room 93. Floor 1. Wave 1. Oh, whoops, I got it backwards. I got it backwards here. This is floor 1. This is going to be room, which would be 93 in our case. Delay. Oh no, sorry. The third one is wave. The fourth one would be delay. Okay, and we're gonna save this for later. It'll be a little bit of a surprise for part 9. So next we're gonna talk about lock and unlock door through the script.
And for this example, I'm just going to place a laser fence. I'm going to place it in front of this door. I'm going to make this switch ID 10. The other ones don't matter too much because of what I'm going to do with this. But as you can see, I have this set so that there's a fence in the way. But I'm actually going to make this fence turn off immediately when the quest starts. So if we go to function 0, right after function 0 does all of its performances, we're going to do an opcode called unlock door. There's a 2 in front of this. The first D word that you put in this is the floor number, and then the second one is the switch ID. Basically what this does is, even though I have this laser fence and temple, the opcode in function 0 is going to make this so that it just instantly turns off. You can use this if you want a door that may eventually lock again later. For example, we're going to make this one lock when function 25 is called. So after the window message and the unhide enemy occurs, we're going to relock this so that this fence prevents you from backtracking. Basically, it's going to be a way for us to say you have to go take that warp. Locks are universal to the floor. They are not like registers where they have to either be individually set or sync registered. Once something is locked or unlocked, it's confirmed for all clients. So if you have something where only one person interacts with the switch, but it unlocks or locks something, it'll occur for all players. These opcodes are pretty simple, and you can help control the flow of how things go in your quest this way. This can also be used to lock and unlock doors that are on other floors. And do not forget that lock 0 is a lock. Anything that has a lock of -1 is already permanently unlocked and cannot be relocked. Considering a lot of these opcodes lock, unlock, unhide. Unfortunately, you cannot hide everything. You cannot hide a majority of objects in quests. You can hide and unhide NPCs, which we will go into at a later time, but once an object is unhidden, it cannot be rehidden. That'll be it for part 8. Part 9 is when we're going to apply a lot more pizzazz to what we got going on, including things such as particle effects, color changing, sound effects, and even music. So stay tuned.